What does tesamorelin do? Now that's a great question because it is the only FDA-approved peptide for fat loss, and most people have never heard of it. I mean, here is a fact that most people in health and fitness world don't know is that there is a peptide that is FDA-approved by the Food and Drug Administration specifically for visceral fat reduction. Now, this is the dangerous fat that accumulates around your organs. It's not a diet drug. It's not a GLP-1. It's a peptide that's been around. I mean, it was approved in 2012, 2013, so it's been around for over a decade. And it works by stimulating your body's own growth hormone releasing hormone receptor, triggering your own growth hormone production and targeting the most dangerous fat deposit in your body with clinical precision. It's called tesamorelin. I'm Regan Archibald. I'm the founder of Ageless Future. We're a company that specializes in working with entrepreneurs and high-profile individuals who want to feel, look, and perform their best at any age. And I can tell you, tesamorelin does some amazing things for those of you who want better cognitive health, hold on to muscle, recover better, sleep better. It is phenomenal, and especially those of you who have some extra fat you want to burn. So what does the data show? Well, in the phase 3 clinical trials, they found that this underutilized compound is an obliterator of visceral fat. They actually found that visceral fat was not a cosmetic problem, it's a medical emergency. So if you think about that fat around your midsection, if you notice your belt loop, you keep having to loosen it, well, that's a problem because that fat that's deep inside your abdomen, you have two types of fat. You have visceral fat and then you have subcutaneous fat. If you can jiggle your fat, it's a little safer. But if you got that hard belly where it just feels distended all the time, you've got some visceral fat, and it's an active endocrine organ. So when you think of these fat cells, they're sending other signals to other cells. Hey, we need more fat cells. And this pathway called NNMT that researchers actually discovered a way of blocking NNMT with a molecule called 5-amino-1-MQ. Now you're turning off the signal, and then if you take tesamorelin in conjunction with it, now you're going to convert that fat into muscle. And so the interesting thing about this active endocrine organ is if you don't do anything about it, your cortisol levels are going to be off. You're going to have more IL-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. These are cytokines that promote and produce inflammation in your body. That's going to block your portal circulation, so you're not going to have a healthy liver health. And so this high visceral fat is correlated with insulin resistance, cardiovascular risk, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and cognitive decline. Even in one of the studies on tesamorelin, they took men over 60 who had mild cognitive decline, and they found that just by being on tesamorelin, they improved their verbal composite scores, their memory scores, their focus, their attention, all improved, and they didn't have the profile of mild cognitive decline. And if you think about what the study showed with people who had this visceral fat, and this was in HIV patients who were taking drugs to help the immune system, the side effect of these drugs, they had bellies, they had low muscle mass, and they had big bellies with lots of visceral fat. And that's the kind of fat that kills you. And so when the participants took tesamorelin, they had an average of 18% melting of visceral fat. And so for a lot of you, it starts in your 30s. It starts to accelerate in your 40s, and then visceral fat really starts to accumulate and becomes faster in accumulation and harder to lose. You become metabolically more toxic every year. I mean, 40, then you get in your 50s, and then in your 60s, it gets really stubborn. So tesamorelin is designed to fix this problem, and actually that's what it is FDA approved for. So tesamorelin, what is it? It's a stabilized analog of growth hormone releasing hormone. And unlike synthetic growth hormone injections, tesamorelin does not induce this exogenous growth hormone reduction in your system. It just binds to the pituitary gland, and you get this stimulation of growth hormone. And it works with the natural pulsing rhythms of your own growth hormone. Now, this is critical because when you take human growth hormone, you're basically blocking the circadian rhythms. You're blocking that pulse that is really necessary so that you preserve that feedback loop. Now, with Tesamorelin, if you're using it from a research use only pharmacy, you may not be getting the full structure because the full structure has these fatty acids at the end cap. And therefore, you're going to get a much stronger pulse on Tesamorelin. The FDA-approved brand was sold under the name Agrifta. It was approved by the FDA, it was in November of 2010. And this was approved for the reduction of visceral fat in HIV patients with lipodystrophy. Now, it went through phase 3 clinical trials. 816 HIV patients were enrolled at 26 weeks. Tesamorelin produced a 15 to 17% reduction in visceral abdominal fat as measured by a CAT scan compared to placebo. Then in 2024, a randomized double-blind trial published on PubMed examined 61 HIV patients on this integrase strand transfer inhibitor-based regimen, Tesamorelin 2 milligrams per day versus placebo, and that's a big dose, but the Tesamorelin group showed a median reduction of 25 square centimeters in visceral fat. The placebo group gained 14 square centimeters. Now that's pretty substantial. And what they found is hepatic fat, fat in the liver, they looked at those two and they decreased by 4.2% in the Tesamorelin group versus just 0.5% in the placebo. Those are significant numbers, and they point to something bigger than HIV management. For non-HIV patients, Tesamorelin is used as off-label through 503A compounding pharmacies for visceral fat reduction, for cognitive enhancement, for deep sleep, and one of the most important is for liver health, especially in people who have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And so if you're optimizing your growth hormone, here's what's going to happen. You'll see that you have less visceral fat, you sleep better, you recover better, you feel more happy. Yes, it can increase hunger, so you got to be careful there, but at the same time, you're burning more energy more efficiently. And so other growth hormone releasing peptides like CJC1295, this is another great peptide. Just like with Tesamorelin, you don't want to have it in the presence of insulin. So make sure you're taking this ideally before bed or first thing in the morning. Do it on the days that you work out. With growth hormone releasing peptides, you don't want to do it on a continual basis. Typically, you want to do 5 days on, 2 days off, do it for 60 to 90 days, and then take a full 30-day break. And you'll be fine. And you can cycle Tesamorelin with CJC, with MK, with Sermorelin, with Sarcotropin, with Hexarelin, Macimorelin. There's so many beautiful ways you can work on the growth hormone pathway. Tesamorelin just seems to be some of the most robust as far as evidence-based medicine goes in the world of peptides. So why does this matter from a longevity perspective? Well, visceral fat is some of the most dangerous fat in your body, and it creates an endocrine system of its own. And so here's the perspective. When you talk about visceral fat, as if it's some kind of aesthetic issue, it's a belly fat problem. And we think, oh, it's just the belly fat. I don't want my dad bod. But then when you look at the research, you start seeing that visceral fat is an endocrine organ that actively accelerates aging at every level of your biology. It drives insulin resistance, which drives metabolic syndrome, which drives chronic inflammation, which drives cardiovascular disease and cognitive decline. It's some of the worst thing. If you think about your parents, hopefully they're still alive, but these are the things that happen as they age, and Tesamorelin can literally reverse that. The other thing about the research is it converts androgens to estrogens when you've got this decline. And this disrupts the entire hormone balance. And so the nice thing about Tesamorelin is it doesn't just remove fat, it restores the physiological signaling that keeps your metabolism young. And that is precision longevity medicine, and that's what we use at Ageless Future. So for those of you ready to go deeper, first thing you want to do is get blood labs ran. Look at your hemoglobin A1C, your glucose. You also want to look at your fasting insulin, your C-peptide, your liver markers. All these will give us a baseline, and then we can build your peptide protocol in based on what your labs show and what your body goals are. And then the other thing is look at your triglycerides, because we found that with Tesamorelin, triglycerides lower, LDL cholesterol lowers, and you reverse your risk of all kinds of diseases. And so for those of you who are serious about your health, you want to go deeper, Go to agelessfuture.com, set up your free intro session, and then check out my most recent video on what time of day should I take Tesamorelin. We'll provide a link in the show notes. I'm Regan Archibald. I'll see you on the next video.